But this is an opportunity for all of you to also frame new questions if you have, or you want to know something more about any of the modules that we have covered. First, I'll answer the question that we have received from my module. I think there was a question that what is the full form of VCDS? This question basically is based on the lecture 6 of week 2, where we discussed various cases on common pool natural resource management. Basically, the lecture covered 4 individual cases, and the cases were from Kolkata, Kerala, Indonesia, and Jharkhand. And the case that this question pertains to was basically based on Kerala case study by Loeb and Burks, whose study was based on small-scale community fishery management in Kerala. And the case tried to understand the Padu system of management of fishery by the unlicensed stake net fishermen of Vivekananda, Chandrika, Divara, Shava. So that is VCDS. So that's the full form of VCDS. It's an unlicensed stake net fisherman. So the community of VCDS basically are a Hindu caste community who are based in Vallapadam Island in Kerala. And the reason why they were chosen for the study was because they follow a community-based management system. And since this module was discussing various cases, so we thought of introducing it. And here the community was using various ways to regulate access to fishing grounds. And also they had their own rules of managing and regulating fishing. And I hope, if you go through the module more, you will also learn more about the Padu system that has been discussed also in this module. So just let me know if you have any doubts about it, but VCDS basically means Vivekananda Chandrika Divara Sabha. So with this, I would request Dr. Amrita to also answer the questions that she has received.
Yes. So, hello, everyone. So we have received, I think, 2 questions. So the first question is, what is decentralization? So I will first answer this. So basically, as you have seen in the first initial part of the lectures, I have also given you some examples. So decentralization basically is a process where the central government distributes or transfers its powers to the lower levels of the administration. So this is the broad meaning of the term decentralization. So as you can understand from the term itself, it means decentralization, which means that a consolidated power is being distributed to the units which are at the lower level of the hierarchy. Now, decentralization itself can be of several types. I have also shared multiple readings with you. If you remember, there was one reading by Yulani where you would be able to see the different types of decentralization like delegation, deconcentration, privatization, and things like that. So what happens is that when there is a power distribution from the central government to the lower levels, it is always not of the same kind. So, for instance, the central government might want to distribute its powers to the immediately next levels of governance, maybe the nation state, maybe the different departments within its own units only, and like that. Or it might want to distribute its powers to the administrative units which are very close to the community, maybe the municipality, maybe the panchayats, maybe the civic bodies, and like that. So decentralization in itself can be of several types. It is not only of, it is a very broad system of transfer of power. So as I say that if you read the case studies, you would be able to get a better idea on what decentralization is and how it works. So I will just give you one small example. If you see my lectures, I had also given you examples from several policies like the Joint Forest Management, Forest Rights Act, where we see that this decentralization has actually worked very effectively in bringing the community itself within the decision-making process. And I think that this is one of the most important, one of the most significant characteristic of decentralization, that when a power is distributed to the lower levels, it gives the local communities some agency to voice their own demands. So, for instance, in a policy like joint forest management, we see that multiple committees are being formed in the rural areas where there are representations from both the people, the community, as well as from the state, in this case the state forest department, which means that when a committee is formed, there can be representation from different parts of the community. So what they want from a particular policy, what kind of rights can be recognized, what kind of demands can be met. So all of these are, I think that these are very important questions that had been neglected for a long time when we used to have centralized policies related to resource management. But with the introduction of decentralized resource management policies, I think that it gives an opportunity to the communities also to be a part of the decision-making process in multiple policies. So this is, I think, broadly what decentralization means. And there is another question. So this is, I think, more of a question related to readings, that how do I assess the readings from Urban Commons and Political Ecology lecture? So I think that there is already a particular forum or some module is available from where you can download, because all of these readings have already been given. So I will just tell you the name of some of these readings. Like I had given you Anjaria's work on urban commons. Asher Gertner was given. Swingadu, Kaika, Hanen, Ima Maudsley. So all of these readings had been given to you. So if you can just go back and if you can search, then you would be able to get all of these readings. And also, I would suggest that since political ecology had also been discussed, it would be worth reading the book by Paul Robbins. So it is, the name of this book is Political Ecology, A Critical Introduction, which is, I think it is an overarching book for the beginners. And if you read it, you would be able to get an initial idea of what political ecology is all about. So I think that this this book has also been given, but in case if it is not there, then we can also share this at a later stage. Okay, so any other questions right now in the live session? So there is a forum in the YouTube, as you can see it, where you can post your questions. So since we are there, we would be able to reply to them instantly if we can. So if you have your questions, please write them down in the forum.
These are some of the questions that we already had in the forum, so we could address them as we began. But students who have other questions can also pose it right now when we are online, so that we can answer them directly. I hope all of you have enjoyed, learning from this course, and at least otherwise enlightened to some of the new perspectives that both Dr. Amrita and I tried to bring in by helping you understand what resource management and governance are. In the beginning also, we tried to help you understand how to categorize resources that are governed under different property regimes, how traditional resources were treated as commons and pastures. And once individual came to know that or realize that these resources are finite, how it led to the evolution of the concept of property. So there are many things I assume, or we assume, that you have learned through this course, and they might be quite new to some of you, and you might have some questions regarding it, so you can always write to us in this forum. And if not right now, you can also pose them to us or write an email. We'll try to also answer them. But I think this is a very good opportunity for students who are attending the live session to interact with us and get to know about what they feel or what they are trying to understand from, or if they have some problems, or if they don't even agree with what we also try to reflect in this course, that is also welcome. So you can also critically pose questions if you have, or your suggestions or your comments. We'll also take them up. In the meantime, I'll also request the TAs to let us know if there are some questions on the forum or on the YouTube channel, new questions that we have not addressed.
Also, I think that this is a very new subject, and we usually, like in our curriculum, we usually do not get such subjects. So such subjects are usually not offered to students, because in sociology, like as we all know, that it is usually the very conventional subjects that are usually taught. Like we learn about gender, we learn about caste and modernization, development, religion. So these are some of the very basic subtopics that are being taught in sociology. But the domain of resource management is something which was still now, I think it was very technical, and it was always been taught within the natural sciences. That is why, so this, I think for the social science students also, this gives a very new perspective. And because as we all know that resources are very much connected to the society, because we cannot just say that resources, like it is very something that we use and utilize and something that can be measured and quantified. No, not like that. So resources, like any resource that you can see, like water, like land, like air, or anything that we are using in our everyday lives, so resources form the basis of our survival. So this is the reason why these are very much related to the society, to mankind, and we need to know the relationship between society and the resource. Like all the topics that we have covered in this course, if you see that these are very much human centric. So what people do with these resources, how they use it, and what are the challenges in conserving these resources, what happens when there is resource crisis. So all of these topics in some way are related to a sociological discussion. So I think that students who are aiming to do higher studies or are currently doing higher studies in sociology or related fields would find it very useful. If you have listened to all the lectures very carefully, and if you get a chance to read all the readings that we had given to you, I think it will be of very much of use in your coming days if you are planning a research career. So are there any questions? Could you please elaborate on the CHIPCO movement in the context of natural resource management? So this is one question that has come, so I will answer this question. So we all know that social movements had been a very important part of raising environmental awareness. So particularly during the 1970s and 1980s, if you see, there had been a large number of movements which had sort of protested commercial exploitation of nature. So Chipko movement was such a movement which was actually spearheaded by women. So it happened during the 1970s, where women had actually hugged trees in order to resist their felling, in order to resist their commercial usage of the forest. And that is why Chipko movement and Apiko. So there is also another movement, the Apiko movement. These are very apt examples of communities raising the cause of environmental awareness, and communities also spearheading the cause of environmental conservation. So I will give you a little bit of background to this. So for a long period of time in the post-independence period, if we see, there was not a lot of environmental consciousness, because when we gained independence, most of the focus of our planners and our policymakers was on industrial growth, was on economic production. And during this period of time, if you have heard about, there was a very famous quote by which by Indira Gandhi, where she said that poverty is the worst polluter. So we will have to first take care of poverty. We will have to first eradicate poverty, and then we can actually think about other concerns like environmental destruction and things like that. So because environment was secondary to all these economic developments and economic growth, for a long period of time, it was relegated to the background. So it was only during the 1970s and 1980s when there was a large scale realization that environment and economic growth are largely related to each other. So if we are not able to save our resources, if we do not think about conservation of nature, then we would not be able to we would not be able to achieve economic growth to a large extent. And that is why many such movements actually were initiated during this period. And I think the Chipko movement is one of the path-breaking movements, because it was if you had heard about Sundarlal Bahuguna, who was one of the, I would say, initiators of this movement, and several other activists who had actually very vibrantly, they had sort of represented the cause of environmental restoration. That if trees are cut, if there is no forest, if the rivers are actually dammed, if there is no water, then no economic development and economic growth is possible. So with this particular vision, we find that many of such movements actually coming out in the later days as well.
Yeah. So I think there is another question. Shiny, I think your question was addressed aptly by Dr. Amrita already. And as we all know, just to add on to what Dr. Amrita was saying, as we all know, or we have studied in this course earlier, resources were taken as commons, like it belongs to everyone around it, or they can use it as they want. Access was easy, as we were discussing about pastures. But slowly, when resources gain the nature of property, then like utilization of resources, who governs the resources, all these things came into the picture. And that is why the fight between the community and the state became very evident, because everyone otherwise were thinking it as commons. But once property was divided, who the resources belongs to, then these fights were quite dominant, because community, as Dr. Amrita was rightly mentioning, they were trying to protect the environment, they were trying to save the environment, because they could see that there is larger benefit to the community, or they were deriving from the resources. But that was not possible when the state intervened, and that is why there was this fight. And we have a lot of these communities who, as Dr. Amrita was saying, environmental struggles or environmental conflicts that you can also reflect on more if you want to read more on it. And they're definitely part of the commons resource management or community resource management. There is another question by Tanay Bhale, I think, that he or she wants to know that will it be the last exam or the final exam? Which type of exam should we expect? Will it be subjective or objective like our assignment? They will be, objectives. So like the assignments that you have given, but I think the marks will be more. You have to write for more number of marks. That is how it is going to be for the final exam. So you can prepare accordingly, like objective type questions if you have already registered for the exam. And just to let others know who are there online, that you can all register for, I'm not sure if the deadline is gone, but if you have registered, you can write the exam. And once you write the exam, I think the topper of the exams are also given an opportunity to do internship with us, Dr. Amrita and me. And you're also given some stipend for doing the internship as well. So this is what outside the courses provide you as well. Apart from writing the test, if you excel, you get some benefits out of it. Yes.
Yes. Also, I think the questions would be MCQ types, if I remember correctly. So, which means that you will have to choose the correct answer, and there would not be any descriptive type questions that would be asked. So, I think you will have to read very meticulously all the slides that had been given to you, as well as the reading materials.
Yeah. They will be from the readings and the slides that we have circulated. So you don't have to read anything beyond that, but at least you have to be thorough in the portions that we have discussed. Because there are MCQs, again, there might be questions where you might get confused if you have not gone through the reading properly. So just try to read the readings and the PPTs in a very detailed manner. Are there other questions? I would request TAs to just check the forum if there are new questions that we have not addressed. Okay. So I don't think there are other questions that Sonini has written.
No new questions.
Madam, so please wait 2 to 3 minutes, then you can close the session.
Yes. Okay.
As we were discussing, we'd again, request students who are online and listening to the live session. You can still pose your questions that we can take. If you have certain doubts or queries or issues that you want to bring up, please write in the forum and then we'll take up the questions one by one.
So there is, yes, one very interesting question. Could you please elaborate on the effects of national forest policy on the tribal people, especially who lives near the national parks? Okay, so this is a very interesting question, Shayoni. So I will try answering this. So I think that the national forest policy had been one of the first of its kind policy to recognize the rights of the people who are dependent on the forest resources for their survival. And then later on, as you had also seen in my lectures, there had been several policy framings in the later period, like we find the Forest Rights Act, then we find the Joint Forest Management, and several others which had been fashioned using the National Forest Policy Framework. So what these so if I am to give you a very straightforward answer, then I would say that seemingly these policies look very participatory, but there is again a lot of complexities on the ways in which many of these policies are implemented. So I will give you two examples. If so, there are two kinds of things. So if a policy is participatory in nature, like you have seen in the case of joint forest management, in such policies, both the communities as well as the government, the state government departments, they mutually they form different committees, which means that in most of these committees, there is equal participation from both the departments as well as from the people. Now, what happens is that for many forest areas, we have seen that since these tribal communities had already been conserving their forests for a long period of time, so they have traditional ecological knowledge, generational knowledge on the resources. But with the coming of these policies, what happens is that most of these knowledges are actually co-opted. So, so what is now a joint forest management committee was earlier a very community centered form of natural resource management policy. But with the coming of the joint forest management, what happens is that the state co-opts a lot of the knowledge, a lot of the many of the systems in which these resources were being governed by the people for a very long period of time. So I would not say that it is entirely effective. So again, it depends. It has to be evaluated on a case by case basis. But in many places, as I have myself experienced, the interference of the state bodies within the formation of these committees, within the functioning of these committees, actually backfires on the intended objectives of the policy, which means that a lot of the user-pract benefits are actually co-opted by many of these committees. And then since these committees are constituted by people from the administration, what happens is that they take control over the entire process, the entire functioning of the system, rather than giving voice to the local communities. That is why there is also, as I was saying in the beginning, there are also another set of policies like the Forest Rights Act, something that I have also discussed in the lectures. So the policies like Forest Rights Act, they are much more emancipatory in nature, because in this particular Forest Rights Act, there are committees which are completely formed by by the communities without any representation from the forest bureaucracy. But what happens is that, again, since these committees under the Forest Rights Act are constituted by the people, the communities, there is a lot of resistance when the implementation of these policies takes place. Which means that, like, if you also see the history of the Forest Rights Act, there are a lot of literature. You will see that the forest bureaucracy never wants any such law or any such policy to be implemented which is completely spearheaded by the community. And that is why, even if these are implemented, they face a lot of backlash, they face a lot of protest. And still now, like, I can tell you about the status reports of many of the claims, many of the rights that has to be recognized under such policies. So the status report actually gives us a very grim picture of very less number of rights being actually recognized under such policies. So it is very difficult to give you a very uniform answer for this question, Shayoni. But I would say that the more you read case studies on the implementation of participatory policies, the more you will get clarity on the mixed response of many of such policies which are participatory in nature. So please read. I have also given you some readings, but across India right now, I think decentralized policies are these are extremely well researched. So please go back and read some of the articles which are published in good journals by Elsevier, Springer, so that you can have an idea on a lot of case studies from across India to see how these policies, which are mimicking the national forest policy, how these are actually implemented in reality.
Are there any further questions from the students who are online or any issues that they want to raise? So I request students who are online to quickly post their questions. We'll wait for a few more minutes and see if there are new questions which have not been addressed, or there are queries or issues that you want us to clarify, then we can do it.
I don't think there are any other questions. So what should we do?
Madam, you can close the session. Okay.
Okay. So thank you everyone for joining the live session, whoever has been online and interacting with us. We hope you have learned from this course new ideas, new concepts, and you're going to use them probably in your future research, or you might use them also to learn more about your interests that we have covered individually. With this, I would like to thank everyone and stop the session for now, because we think that you don't have any further questions now.
Yes. So thank you, everyone. I really we feel that you have really enjoyed this course. So we also encourage you to read some of the articles that we had sent to you so that you have more clarity on what we had spoken throughout the lectures. And if you have any queries, as Professor Patnaik said, you can always write to us and we will try to answer them.
Thank you, and we'll stop.